My family made a conscious decision when this happened that we would not go quietly into the night, that we would not allow our mother to be remembered as a victim, and we're not going to live the lives of victims. And so that requires us to speak out, that requires us to work.
30 years from now, when you raise this issue, they say, well, we spent billions of dollars on black buffalo, and nothing happened.
He took the best of us. These were people who valued family. These were people of faith. These were community members who contributed to our community in so many ways.
We have the power. It's not something that's outside of us. We keep looking for somebody. Nobody's coming in to save us.
Historically, Buffalo was an important site on the Underground Railroad. Fugitive slaves, in trying to find their way to freedom, they came up to the Western New York area. And when they got to Canada, they felt they could be safe. And here in Buffalo, one of the sites of the Underground Railroad was the Michigan Street Baptist Church, 511 Michigan Avenue.
Buffalo is what I'd like to call a third order black community. Before World War II, the population was very small, only about 18,000 black people living here. And so this was a black community that came into fruition during the age of the Great Migration. And during that particular period, particularly between around 1940 and 1970, the population jumped from about 17,000 to more than 94,000 folks.
One of the places that blacks really found employment was in the old steel factories.
The eastern side of Buffalo was the heart of the industrial zone. This is where many of the factories were located. Buffalo's original black community was situated on the Lower East Side, in and around the waterfront stadium. And so as the population poured into the city, they began to move up that east side corridor where housing was available and vacant.
My father worked at LL Burgers, one of the exclusive clothing stores downtown. And he was blessed to get a job at Ford Motor Company. And that's how we moved out of the projects to our home, one family home in the 14211 area, east side of Buffalo. At that time, that was like being in the suburbs. There was only one other black family within several block radius of us. And obviously the demographics and everything changed over the years.
One of the big attractions on Buffalo's east side were the neighborhoods surrounding the Humboldt Parkway. The Humboldt Parkway was one of the most beautiful places within the city. And when black people saw that they could buy houses in that neighborhood and community, they rushed to the Humboldt Parkway full of joy, hope, and happiness, only to discover a short time later that a highway was going to be built there that would devalue their homes and shatter their dreams of a better life.
Prominent black people. This was the rich area when I was a kid. And when we came here, they had completed tearing up the thruway. Yes, it was our neighborhood. They had stores, we had black stores on every corner. I worked in there, damn near every one of them.
The Buffalo Bills were originally located in the War Memorial Stadium on Buffalo's east side, only a stone's throw from Top Supermarket. It brought thousands and thousands of people into the community on a regular basis. And like everybody else that has a stadium, it meant that there was an enormous amount of informal income that was generated from parking and other kinds of services that people in that location could acquire.
The Bills. We won the championship in 1964, before the merger, before the Super Bowl, and there was a good feeling. And there was a good feeling about Jefferson Avenue. But of course, in the 70s, actually the late 60s, things really changed.
We had a race riot in 1967. A couple teenagers had got into trouble and they were arrested by the police, and there was some brutality involved in that arrest.
So following the rebellion, leaders in this region made the decision to relocate the football stadium. Their view was that white people were afraid of African Americans and would not visit a stadium situated in the African American community. They would not go there. And so they relocated that stadium to Orchard Park.
Living here, you felt it. Jefferson Avenue, after the mini riot, many businesses left Jefferson. And the black businesses that had been, I mean, we had black hotels and other things, black insurance companies, real estate companies, they struggled.
Buffalo is one of the most segregated urban centers in the United States, and the high concentration of blacks is what attracted the racist shooter to the city of good neighbors on May 14th, 2022. This white supremacist knew that only one supermarket serviced the east side's 68,000 black residents. Tops sits in an urban landscape that reflects the ugly realities of Buffalo's brand of structural racism.
I believe 80% of people of color in the city of Buffalo live in East Buffalo. And none of these things are by coincidence. It's by design, generational design. And what you see today, the blight, the hopelessness, the disease, is all part of those intentional efforts down through the years.
The inner city communities that don't have grocery stores were intentionally divested. It wasn't an accident. I grew up in it. When you're shopping at corner stores, or your mom or whoever does the shopping has to take a cab or 3 buses to get to where you can get some grocery shopping.
When I was growing up in the 70s, we had Loblaws, we had a Bell's, we had an A&P Mark. We had everything we needed in the neighborhood. Fresh vegetables, everything. And then one day, they just tore them down.
They just knocked things down and moved on with the idea that at some other point, they would put these lands and these spaces to more valuable and more profitable use. So that was the land space that African Americans reside in. And now much of that space is owned by the city, and the land has been commodified. You walk around Top Store, you will see the substandard, dilapidated housing, the unkept vacant lots, the cracked and unrepaired sidewalk, an environment that produces images of forlorn and neglect. That's what I mean by underdevelopment. This is Tops. These are the conditions that you see around it. You know, you just drop down and, you know, these are the kinds of things you see down on the ground in the neighborhood and the community.
A lot of people have said that black people have not had any grocery stores. However, we did have a black-owned grocery store, and the name of the grocery store was Figmos. The building is still there today, as a matter of fact. Figmo stood for, finally, I got my own supermarket, praise the Lord. I shopped there a lot in the early 1980s. It was well stocked. It had fruits and vegetables. Everything was fresh. And it was there for a long time. I would say it ran into some financial problems. So there's a lot that needs to be done to bring these types of things back into the inner city of Buffalo.
I'm the last council member at large. It's all districts now. So I represented the whole city. I had to run citywide. And to bring about a change was a very difficult thing. When I got elected city council member, that was a picture way back in the day. A lot of what you do in activism goes unrecorded, unrecognized, unknown. 95% of the things I've done are without the benefit of public scrutiny or a camera or appreciation.
He was the guy that laid down on the ground one time in front of the garbage truck because they crammed that garbage fee. They put that garbage fee on us that they weren't supposed to have done. And he laid down in front of a garbage truck protesting that. Is how he really came to fame.
Larry, what's going on, man? Hey, man.
All right, long time no see, bro.
Yes, sir, it is. I'm here for some of that best coffee. I had a role in advocating for a kind of community co-op headed by a renowned economist. The proposal never got the kind of buy-in, and subsequently, it never was launched. Then the next option was to turn to a Wegmans or a Tops or some other outfit like that, and Tops was the one that said yes. And it's largely been valued and appreciated for all of the fact that it's a small Tops and this, that, and the other. It's still beloved by the community.
So many people who live in the surrounding areas, they didn't have transportation and they don't have transportation to go out. So they needed that supermarket.
If you were to look at a map of Buffalo and you wanted to know which parts were suffering the most, it'd be pretty easy. That is why when the massacre took place here at Tops, it was easy for him to find us because Buffalo is so separated and segregated.
I'm in my yard, and somebody come by here and said that white man killed up them people in Tops Market. I really didn't pay, a kid did. And I said, what are you talking about? He said that white man killed up, shot them people, and they let him get away. They walked him to the car.
I literally was coming out the yard from cutting cat's grass. And as soon as I came out of cat's yard, my neighbor Doug was coming down the street. He said, Barbara, did you hear they were shooting at Tops? And it took me a second, I said, our Tops. I left the lawnmower, got in the car, I raced up to, Tops is only like 7 minutes from us maybe, and I couldn't get no further than the fire department.
I immediately drove to the firehouse, which was a block from Tops, Jefferson and Kingsley. There was a lot of activity going on. I found the persons in charge, and I got assigned some persons to walk with me over to the scene.
And it was just wall to wall, police officers, people, no one yelling, no crying, no pushing. Everybody was just in shock.
I was able to stand on my toes or something. I just saw just the top of a black car. It was the first car up by the door in a handicapped spot, and that's where my mother would have parked. If she could have driven her car into the store and parked it, that's what she would have done. But I knew that was her car.
The drones were up there, and then SWAT was going around the side, and then they was bringing out the people that was still in the store, and I just kept making my way. Could you just see if my sister, Cat Massey, I described her, so they heard me so many times that the FBI agent remember who I was when he told me he was coming back 8 hours later to let me know. That's how many times I worked the crowd.
So I called the nursing home. They sent me the footage of persons entering the building that day. My mom was in that footage. I saw what she had on. I was able to describe her outfit to the police officer, to the detective, who went in and identified my mom.
right before we buried Kat, we didn't know that he had shot her in the back of her head 2 times, and they had to use paper mache to put her head back together. The mortician, he said he's been a mortician, I don't know how many years, and he never in his life, ever, seen nothing like that before.
You gonna come to our city and decide you don't like black people. Man, you don't know a damn thing about black people. We're human. We like our kids to go to good schools. We love our kids. We never go in those neighborhoods and take people out. Don't do it.
I wanted to kill his ass.
I know.
Sorry to say it like that.
I did too.
But like, I'm trying to get my cousin to come up there with me. I'm gonna distract him. We got to do something to this man for all the pain. I mean, not only just with my I mean, like, I lost my friends too. Roberto was one of my best friends. Marcus is one of my best friends. I mean, these are people I see every day.
See, he's 2 blocks away.
You understand? I haven't been sober since my aunt passed away. I drink every day. I don't sleep. Each particular family that's all been through this tragedy, there's no form of healing possible. There's no form of healing possible.
Kat was just a good person. She was just a normal, everyday person that cared about what's going on in her community. She cared about people. She wanted things to be better for everyone. She was a big advocate about gun control. And a matter of fact, I think might be, I don't know if it was the last paper she wrote, but she had a big article. But yes, Kat was a big advocate of gun violence because it just, yeah. And then to get killed by a gun, that's just, the devil came to town. Yeah. Everything Kat did was for the community. These rails you're looking at, this was Kat years and years and years talking to the DOT. And she met a wonderful guy, Mike Christner. She wanted the street to be tree lined, just like every place else, suburbs. Why shouldn't we have them? That's exactly what she said. Why shouldn't we have the trees? And he made it happen. And Mike was saying that Kat was the only person, even after he retired, still sent him a card thanking him. Everything she left is here. I just come down once a month and I dust them out. This is the only things we didn't take down. She would have these poster notes. Oh my God, I didn't even know. I didn't even notice it was, I didn't even read this before. May 2022, this is coming down.
I spent May 13th, the last day of my mother's life. I spent the entire day with her. You know, I'm thankful for that. I was building a raised garden, and she sat out there and she said, you know, you must be putting all this work into this box because you think you're gonna be using it after I'm gone. My mom was going to buy seeds at Tops that morning for her garden to plant. We were her seeds. We were already planted. And she was concerned about what kind of fruit we were going to bear. And that's what comes out of 514, people coming together. That's how we effectuate change.
As a result of the tragedy of 514, a lot of our elected officials are saying, you know, they want to see things change. So a lot of money is being sent this way. People are making promises. We're gonna give the East Side $50 million, $100 million. But a lot of people I talk to say, we want to see it. We want to see something happen. We want to see those promises fulfilled.
I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to our invited panelists.
Good morning. Here today because my 86-year-old mother was murdered, along with 9 other souls while shopping in our community on May 14th. On the surface, it would appear that I had made it. You know, I'm blessed with a functional family, a reasonable portion of health and intelligence, depending on who you talk to, common sense, gainful employment, an opportunity to grab a piece of that much sought after American dream. The problem is, reality keeps waking you up. All of the statistics, all of the things that you hear, this didn't just start on May 14th. We've been living with this our entire lives.
Right now, based on our analysis, we've got maybe $1 to $2.2 billion of projects aimed for the East Side that are either planned or being implemented. Yet, we suspect that 90 to 95% of those dollars will flow through the East Side like water through a sieve en route to white communities. Primarily because they're the ones, the businesses will get the contracts and white workers will be doing the job. Stand in the shadow of the Tops massacre. It's clear that only black people can save black people, and that they must do this in alliance with other races and groups within the framework of this city.
We have 18 deliveries for Thursday. Friday, we also have pickup. Those home kits, we should have 200 deliveries for next week. Okay? So we're gonna have, no, we rolling. African Heritage Food Co-op, prior to pandemics or acts of domestic terrorism, worked in a couple of ways. One, through deliveries, on-door deliveries or last mile deliveries, as well as doing open air markets throughout the city and an established storefront in Niagara Falls. There wasn't a singular event that caused the creation of the co-op, and the inspiration was the lack of black ownership in the inner cities that were predominantly populated by African Americans, the fact that most food-related illnesses affect African Americans at a higher rate, and the fact that there was unemployment and glass ceilings. So you saw African Americans working in stores, but they're usually low level, at most mid-level. The grocery store has been needed for 50 years. So people need to see something right now. People are frustrated. It's taken longer than they wanted it to take. And that's why we're pushing so hard. Now that these funds are coming in, it's been making it happen, because this should have been built 3 years ago. We have $3 million coming from the state of New York. We have $200,000 coming from the USDA. So we'll be accessing that in the next couple of weeks. So we have one store in Niagara Falls, which, including the parking lot, is 6,000 square feet, one floor. And the store that's coming to Buffalo here is going to be 5,000 square feet when it's all said and done, except it has 3 floors. Right now, we're in the historic Fruit Belt neighborhood. It began as a German community and transitioned into an African American community past 50 or so years. We're here at 238 Carlton, the future site of the African Heritage Food Cooperative grocery store. It's gonna be 3 floors, groceries, community space, cafe, and offices. We're very, very happy to be able to provide healthy options for folks within walking distance in a site that's been victimized by food apartheid. We're not, new to gun violence. We're not new to death. We're not new to that kind of stuff. We're also not new to white brutality, and it doesn't stop us from going to work. It doesn't stop us from raising our kids. It doesn't stop us from from voting, being part of society. This isn't gonna stop us now.
We didn't get here overnight. We're 10 months from 5/14. We're talking about generational things in Buffalo. And so it's naive to think that that's going to change overnight. One of the things we want to make sure happens here is that history is recorded accurately and preserved, and not just for this moment in time, but for future generations. We're here outside of the Buffalo Museum of History Resource Center. It's a place where they archive artifacts and different historical things that are not on display in the museum, where they restore them and preserve them. The artifacts from the shooting on Jefferson Avenue on 514 were taken here, were collected, brought here. They are in the process of restoring them, salvaging what they can. So many times our stories are neglected, have not been written. So it's very important, not just for this generation, but for those to come, to know what happened in Buffalo, to know who suffered at the hands of this white supremacist, but not only that, to know how we continue to stand and come together as a people and as a larger community. And so this is part of that work.
What would it be great to see? What would you want to participate in?
I've been to Washington many times, but the truth of the matter is that that's like kind of abstract for my community. I would like to see people who, from my community, that look like me, quite frankly. I think that having a cultural sensitivity as a part of this, and I think that goes a long way to making this, a universal effort. So Highland Park is 27 miles from the south side of Chicago, which, depending on who you're talking to, is considered the murder capital of the world. The people in that Highland Park community never, ever did anything to advocate for change in the south side of Chicago. So my discussion with them the other night was, you have a unique opportunity to speak to those things. 514 is bigger than Buffalo. It's bigger than what happened here. And we have to be able to see that. And so that's what I'm hoping to be able to do with these different groups.
I hope on May 14th we just don't commiserate the tragedy, but we also come up with a plan to take these vacant lots, invest in something, and rebuild Jefferson.
I paid over $1 million since I own real estate, and I paid the taxes to get this kind of treatment. Done. I don't ask these people to do nothing. I just want to see this place go somewhere, because it's home to me. It's roots.
The best way to remember those who were killed is to carry on their legacy, to remember how important they were to this community, to carry on their sense of family, community. That's the best way to remember them, to be the best that we can be as a community in Buffalo, New York.